At the moment registration works fine, but we're going to improve it. So first of all, I prefer, after successful registration, redirect the user to the particular page, let's say profile page. But before that, let's just remove previously registered user from the users table, switch over to the editor, open up file with routes, and right here let's create new route that is going to lead to the profile page. Let's specify proper template for it, which doesn't exist yet, but soon we're going to create it. And also, for this route I'm going to apply so-called middleware with the name auth. And the concept of middleware is some kind of a technique which allows us to specify arbitrary logic that has to be executed before the request hits particular route. So we can put additional constraints and checks in the middleware, but for now we're going to use already created middleware auth, which is provided by Laravel by default, and this will basically ensure that this route will only be accessible to authenticated users, otherwise will be redirected to a different page when trying to access this route while not being authenticated. Alright, let's also specify the path of that route that we need to be redirected after successful registration, and we can do so inside fortify.php configuration file, and the key responsible for specifying the path to be redirected to after successful registration is called home. So right here I'm going to specify address of the profile page. Next one, we have to create the view responsible for showing profile page. I'm going to create the file with the name profile.blade.php, and as we usually do, let's take the layout for this page from another template, paste it into a profile template, and close all the text, and rename heading for this page. We'll say profile. And just to make sure what is going to happen after successful registration in this case, I'm going to quickly fill in this registration form, submit it, and there we go. We have just been redirected to the profile page after successful registration. And that is exactly the behavior that we were expecting. Now I'm gonna open up developer tools, open up application section where we can see all the cookies that have been set by our application. And one of those cookies is called watch_session. This is so-called session cookie that stores session identifier of the authenticated user. And of course, if I'm gonna remove this cookie and then refresh profile page, sure enough, we will be redirected to the login screen because we are no longer registered, since we have previously removed session cookie. As you remember, we have also previously applied middleware with the name auth to the profile page, which ensures if the user is not authenticated, he will be redirected back to the login page. As a next step, I also prefer to change menu items for authenticated users, and instead of showing login and register menu items, we'll show profile link instead. So I'll switch over to the template which is responsible for rendering menu items in a header. Right here, as you can see, we are fetching all menu items from configuration file watch.php. Under now items key, here we have a list of all menu items, and to this list I'm going to add one more item, which will be responsible for the profile page. Back to navigation template, and right here we have this callback, which is basically used to reject some of the routes which should not be shown in the navigation. I'm going to expand this logic, since we're gonna have to properly handle profile now item. Let's save all the route names that should not be shown in the navigation into rejected route names variable. And then based on the fact if the user is authenticated or not, we're going to do different things. And if the user is authenticated, that we can check by calling check method on the object returned by the auth global helper. In this case, we're also going to filter out routes with names register and login, and that is why we're adding those route names into this array. Otherwise, if the current user is not authenticated, then we'll have to filter out another route called profile, since In order to see profile page, user has to authenticate first. And down here we're using for each directive to render all those menu items. Let's go back to the browser. But before that, let's also remove registered user from the database and create new one by registering. And so since we're not authenticated yet, we're seeing login and register menu items in the navigation. But the moment I'm going to create new user and register, we'll be redirected to the profile page, and at the same time, we're seeing profile menu item in the navigation. Actually, this profile menu item is also shown in the footer navigation, which I prefer to hide it from here. So let's switch over to the template responsible for rendering footer navigation, and right here I will add one more entry called profile to this list of road names that we have to filter out. So now, as you can see, profile menu item is disappeared from the footer navigation. And now I'm going to remove session cookie, and we already know what is going to happen after I refresh the page. While being on the profile page, we'll be redirected to the login screen. Since we are no longer authenticated, NO's middleware that we have previously applied to the profile road has redirected us to login screen. And lastly, in this lesson, I'm going to make another enhancement, and that is we're going to focus on the first input field on the register page. And to make it work, all we have to do is to basically add attribute with a name autofocus on this input field. And now let's try it out. I'm gonna switch over to register page, and sure enough, the first input field will receive focus. The link to the source code will be in the video description.